It's Monday on Your View. Welcome to the show. I am Murayo Affordability Brown. As always, I have the ladies with me. Hello.
Good
Hi,
morning.
Tokwe. How are you?
I'm good.
How was your weekend?
Weekend was great.
Anything interesting happening?
Everything interesting is happening.
Okay.
I am. I'm enjoying my spiritual journey with God. This year has been really, really interesting, and God just opened my eyes to multitude of graces is what I'll say. So before I've just been stuck with, I listened to my pastor and I'm like, I'm full here. I don't need any other thing. But apparently God, knowing this season, has brought in my attention to many other ministers they've been blessing me immensely. So I felt I wasn't on the show when Joshua Selma was celebrating his birthday, but his ministry has so blessed me. Yesterday I was with winners. You know, like we're online churching now, so you can do like 4 services, 4 different churches in one Sunday, and I'm enjoying it. So this one is prophesying. I'm like, all the prophecies I have partaken. I have enjoyed all these graces. So this morning I'm feeling very full of joy and very full of God. You know, so that's what has been happening this weekend.
That's sweet.
Yes.
How you doing? I'm doing amazing. You know, since the pandemic, I hadn't taken my children out. They've been indoors, just eating.
Tell me about it.
And eating and eating. So on Saturday, we had something to do on the island. I said, everybody, get into the car. We are all going out. They were so excited. And moreover, my son had been wearing his outing clothes at home because he told me, Mommy, I'm growing. If I don't wear these clothes, I won't be able to. I said, okay, go ahead. They've been wearing their party clothes at home. So it was an opportunity for them to dress up nicely. They got into the car. We got to the island. We're busy doing what my husband was busy with what he was doing. I decided to start dancing with them. It was just bonding time for me. We did a lot of Snapchat videos, dancing, singing. We just had fun. After that, we went to a pizza spot, got pizza, and we headed home. We got home like 8 p.m. and everybody just crashed. So it was a fun weekend.
I think so too, because they've been home for so long. My photo shoots last week Wednesday was the first time they were getting out. So they went out, they played upstairs, ran everywhere. When we got home back for the Thursday, everybody was on the bed. Like everybody was still sleeping, everybody was fagged out. So I know what it means. Sometimes
I know my children get busy inside the house. Like the way they run around in the house. And we've had like 3 minor accidents just yesterday because the place that they are trying to cramp as much fun into a small location. So they fell down. I saw bruise on the back of my baby. I'm like, one day what happened? I fell down. They are jumping everywhere. So because his base is small, they are trying to do
I just remember something. So should we talk about your new thing, or we should keep it secret?
No. Not talk about it yet.
Not talk about it.
No.
We're grateful to God for your life. We're seeing the blessings, the physical blessings, but we'll mention it on TV.
We're seeing the work as well.
We're seeing the work. We're seeing the work. Yeah, so it's a week from today.
So Morayo is 41 weeks from today. 40 looks good on you, and like
like 40.
I feel like I am
it's not about the age.
Gracefully.
It's not about the age. It's the vibe.
The joy.
It's the joy. It's it's from the inside. Yes, that's the 40 I'm feeling. Yes, I'm enjoying it.
I feel it.
I wanted to wear lashes today. I said, right, don't
not yet.
Calm down.
So because I was like, let me just see. There's something you feel. I feel joy. I feel happy. I feel thankful. I feel grateful to God for all that's happening. And honestly, it's just that I'm thankful that I didn't have to spend the money for a party, because honestly, I'm a Lagos girl. Party was important to me.
So the COVID-19 saved you.
COVID-19 saved me. Either way, we are still spending money elsewhere, but I'm happy that the way they're spending the money is something that lasts for a long time. And I'm grateful to God. I mean, we're planning to. Tokwe Alabi has confirmed.
Yay!
So she's going to be my guest artist on next week, Monday. We're going to have a worship session with Tokwe Alabi. I'm pretty excited about that.
I'm pretty excited about it too. It's like it's my 40th.
Yeah, so I'll put together a flyer. So that people can join us. I think it's 4 p.m. on Monday. Just to have a nice 1-hour praise worship. They're for long. Thank God for 40 years.
We're grateful for you.
Thank you.
Like we're rejoicing with you.
Let's go to break. It's Monday. Let's get serious.
Okay.
Please, Nigeria is about 2.3 trillion naira. Let's change our look this morning.
Let's wear the Nigerian look.
Go on a break. We'll be right back. Okay, let's start with the punch. APC caretaker panel meets today to set up convention committees. Picture here of former governor of Oyo State being laid to rest. Ajimobi's wife berates Makinde, ex-governor, was buried. Okada men stone Lagos businessman to death for hitting partially sighted man. Again, Oyedipo faults Lagos Ogun for not reopening churches. INEC lists tough conditions for campaign rallies in Edo. 61-year-old man arrested for impregnating daughter in Lagos. Wadume, Balarabe's troops tortured me until I fainted, says survivor. 13 vessels coming from 5 COVID-19 endemic nations, says Nemasa. Lots of stories here. Let's start with the human interest story. Okada man.
Yeah, so this businessman, Yama Usman, around the Ikorodu area, who was just driving, and then he hit a partially blind man, and he didn't stop, so he continued. Those bike men around the area gave him a hot chase, and by the time they cornered him at one junction where they had a lot of potholes, he wasn't able to run anymore. They cornered him, they broke his windscreen. According to, there were two sides to the story. Some said he was stoned, they brought him down, they stoned him to death. Another one said that a lot of them, they had multiple stab wounds. But the police has confirmed the story. They are still looking for those bike men. Now, they ended up killing this man. He was lying in a pool of blood by the time the police got there. And the man who he hit, who is partially blind, survived. He just had a minor injury. So these people ran after him and killed him for no just cause. I think we should stop taking laws into our hands. And I really do not know how we can educate those people out there, those bike men out there, that if anything happens like this, you just call the police and not take laws into your hands. It's really painful.
So this story, Bishop Oyedipo is still lamenting.
Yes, I watched it with him yesterday. And
you heard it?
Yes, so I heard it live, and he was saying, it was very blunt. He said that when you go to the market people are not observing social distancing. Not all of them are wearing nose masks, and there's no washing of hands in the marketplaces. And that when you get there, the market person doesn't ask you, have you been tested for COVID? He doesn't ask you, are you isolating yourself? Everybody just goes about their business in the marketplace as usual. That this has become something against the religious houses, because they are not allowed to worship even when they can observe social distancing and all of that. I also wanted to take INEC story. So the INEC has given, and I'm emphasizing this because I know many politicians and young grassroots politicians, for what they want to eat, would go campaigning in Edo State right now. There are strict conditions and strict guidelines that INEC has given in accordance to what the NCDC boss has said. You must not gather in crowded places. There must be social distancing at your rallies. Your rallies must be, you must pre-inform INEC officials of every rally before it takes place, and they must have an official there to observe that you are complying with the rules. Nose masks and face shields are compulsory. So please, we cannot say because we want to do elections or campaign now cause the pandemic to spread even further.
In a related story, the Massa had said that 13 vessels are coming for 5 endemic nations of COVID-19. That means that when these vessels arrive, we must take the highest level of precaution in engaging them, because we don't want to continue the spread. One vessel will land in Lagos, in Apapa, others will go to Benin, and others. So we need to ensure
all of them.
that we take highest level of precaution. How do we
test the vessels? That's another
thing. Before you engage any of the people coming from, you have to ensure that you have all the proper gadgets on.
To protect yourself.
India, Brazil is in major crisis. Having a vessel coming from Brazil, we should be worried.
Dangerous.
But I remember the NPA boss said that there were procedures that they had. So let's just follow the procedures. There's no cutting of corners right now.
Moving on to the nation. Power consumers, man kick. Over 100% tariff hike. Petrol price fully deregulated. Leaders bid Ajimobi farewell. Ohaneze protest as splinter group springs up. Okay, which story are we taking here?
The power.
Major headline, go ahead.
Yes, please. So there's this controversy trailing the new electricity tariff, which is supposed to be starting up on July 1st. Now, there are two issues. The discos are accusing NEC of distancing themselves from this particular increase. Say, as a matter of fact, they even said they wrote them a letter to say that do not mention our names when you go public about this increase. Don't mention our names, don't mention the names of the federal government. Now, the disco is saying that they do not have the final say when it comes to policies like this, and whether it's downward review or upward review, it's NEC that has the final say. So they can't just, make the decisions themselves, and so they are in this together. But something caught my attention where the Minister of Power was saying that even the increase is not going to bring us more efficient electricity, but it's still going to be better. So I'm wondering, if it's not going to bring us more, why are we increasing it?
Well, that's a conversation for another day because of issues.
But the executive secretary, the executive secretary, yes, of PPRA, Abdul Kadir Sadiu, spoke up concerning the PPRA's statement that the prices have been deregulated. So PMS has been deregulated, and consumable petrol has been deregulated, but the marketers have been kicking against it because even though it is deregulated technically, the PPRA will still be giving them price regulation on a monthly basis. So the marketers don't want that supervision. And the executive secretary of PPRA is saying that nowhere in the world, even with price deregulation, would they allow free markets to just determine what the price would be. That there must still be supervision from a body, even though it has been deregulated. So we're going to see how that will work out. But we're still waiting. I've not seen any difference yet. I was expecting that maybe the price will fall or it will go up, but like...
All right, give it time.
So I was going to take the story on Ohaneze. Let me take it in Sun. I think it's Daily Sun. Moving on to Daily Sun. COVID-19 will make 96 million Nigerians extremely poor by 2022, says World Bank. Buhari faces lawsuit over $22.7 billion loan. Ajimobi's widow slams Makinde deputy for lack of empathy. Ondo Assembly may impeach deputy governor this week. Okay. Let's take the major. Who has the major headline?
Yes, about the poverty. So the World Bank has predicted that an estimation of about 95.7 million people will be joining the extremely poor in 2022. We already had about 90 million people in Nigeria who live below $1 per day. And so with this new calculation, they are saying that if nothing is done right now, it was basically more of bad news. They were just breaking it down for
so this year we have 82 million Nigerians. Yeah. So by 2022, we're going to have
less tthan 450 naira.
Yeah.
A day.
Okay, let's Ajimobi's wife lashed out at the governor.
So we all watched the video. I think everybody watched the video because it went viral, and there's been back and forth on concerning it. So essentially, what she was saying that was termed lash out was she was complaining about lack of communication from the sitting governor in Oyo State, that's Makinde, and
the issue of Tokwe was the fact that Nigerians do not know when the former governor was sick. But many politicians knew. So from like the first week in June, this man was sick and was in intensive care. And I think what she was trying to say is that from the moment he was sick to the point he died, she didn't hear from the governor. Wow. So you're not all come with your Agbada now come to our house and start giving her condolence messages. Now, all the governors came in. Our governor of Lagos State was there. Fayemi was there. The Kano State governor was there.
She didn't lash out at those ones.
So the point is that aside from that moment, the issue was that since the man was sick, I didn't hear a word from the government. There are other factors that people are saying, oh, this happened, that happened. But the issue is,
there was a life and death situation.
The woman obviously did not hear from the governor of Oyo State, which I think is a point that is not worthy of
Another thing that we should also notice is that this woman is grieving, and we all have different ways of grieving. And I don't expect anybody to turn this into a political tirade because somebody just lost a friend, lost a lover, lost a partner that has been together for a long time. So let's leave it. Human being died. And so let's focus on that. And human being is grieving.
Moving on to Daily Trust very quickly. Insecurity persists as military launches over 40 operations in 5 years. Lockdown blues for Rivers traders as markets stay closed. Has kind of flattened the curve of COVID-19? Very important question, Daily Trust. Let's see. Well, nobody read that story, right?
We have 9 soldiers died and 16 others were killed in an ambush that took place in Damba, Maiduguri on Saturday. So I know that the major headline was saying that the insecurity persists, but we're losing soldiers. We're losing people that have gone to serve us. And if we don't equip them well enough, this was an ambush. I believe that we need to have more positive response because we just take it as numbers. This is 9. Oh, 9 today, 16 tomorrow, 25. Soldiers are dying. This insecurity is killing people in the Northeast and in the North generally. We need to have a forthright government. The president needs to speak up. You can't just be cautioning the service chiefs. Something needs to happen on a huge scale.
All right, quickly, River State. So traders in River State are actually complaining that they've had this lockdown of their markets since for 3 months now due to the pandemic, and nothing is being done. So they are struggling. They are complaining to their governor that we are people who interface daily to be able to feed. We are not able to feed, and a lot of them are actually smuggling their goods. They are calling their customers one-on-one to supply the goods there. And then there was a time some of them tried to sell on the roads, but then the task force came and destroyed their wares, injured a lot of them. So they're appealing that we need to eat. In as much as we are trying to safeguard ourselves, we also need to eat. He should look into,
our final paper of Vanguard this morning, fresh threats as FG Siemens take conflicting positions. Ohaneze cracks, splinter groups emerges. Tariff hike, NERC silence won't stop implementation on July 1st says this goes. Wike blasts Amechi over group's threats to destroy rivers, and your government played politics with my husband's death, says Ajimobi's wife. Okay, so Ohaneze, what happened was that a splinter group emerged. So interestingly, the Ohaneze that we know was never registered as CAC. So somebody now registered Ohaneze Ndigbo General Assembly, and they have a proper CAC number, and now it's now a constitutionally backed organization.
Not the old
so
one.
It's no more. So, but Unwodo, who is also the head of the current one, is saying that it is an attempt to destabilize the Indigo. So obviously, there's also a crack in between within them, because the new head of this one is now saying that they want it to be more than a pressure group. When it's a group that actually has that backing to sue and can be sued. So
but they would have had talks amongst themselves and go, I don't know.
So, well,
somebody has
I read it actually, but I was not interested.
We have to move on.
Yeah.
Let's go on a break now. That's all we can take on Front Page Review. I really want to take the PPRD. You took the PPRD.
Yes, I took the PPRD.
They're regulated, but they're not regulated.
They are regulated, but they're not regulated. That's the essence. I like the way you just said it.
Yeah. Let's go on a break. When we come back, we saw the story that caught our attention. Nigerians are paying 152 billion naira in tuition in the United Kingdom. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So according to reports, thousands of Nigerian students abroad are currently faced with serious challenges on the account of the coronavirus pandemic and the burden already by exorbitant fees. The global health challenge has dislocated their study desires and leaving them stranded in these nations. Now, we'd like to open our phone lines to those of you living abroad and even parents that have children abroad to call us on 0708066814. You can also tweet us at TVC Connect, hashtag YourViewTVC, so we can hear your thoughts. Because we read in the report, I think it was Guardian this morning, that parents are collectively paying about 152 billion in tuition. And obviously, because of the depreciation of the Naira, they're having to pay more. So before you were changing Naira, I think it was 360. Now it's 460, I believe. The numbers are exorbitant, obviously. And the kids abroad are also having issues because many of them can't work. They are dependent on their families. And the fees, obviously, are not going down. So in your view, I mean, what are some of the figures that you've seen, Tokwe or BC? I don't know who wants to go first.
Yes, so I saw here about 7 million for depending on the course
annually,
actually.
Right?
Yes, annually. So international graduate students pay 6.4 million for classroom taught courses. We have those who are doing laboratory.
Naira. Converted it to Naira.
We converted to Naira. For those who are doing laboratory and clinical courses, they pay about 7 to 11.5 million yearly. Then postgraduates about 6 million to 10 million, 6 to 10 million, and different. So the highest I believe for a year it's about 15 million. And when I read this, I was concerned because we've had an educational expert who came on the show and told us that if we want to start generating revenue, that the oil, we've so much relied on the oil that we've neglected other sectors. Now, if we want to generate revenue, we need to look into education, because the truth is, quality education is expensive. And this is what the foreign countries have capitalized on to beef up their quality education so that it keeps giving them revenue year in, year out. People finish school and have to pay loans for almost the rest of their lives back to the government, and they're using it to build their infrastructure and develop themselves. We need to calm down and increase the budget allocation for education and start building our own education to standard. Right now, we've had the pandemic. No university, I've not heard any, who has gone online to even start administering courses to the students. So if schools don't resume by the end of the year, that means the children will be home for a very, very long time. We are not proactive in our thinking. So I don't blame Oyibo people for charging this amount of money.
But the truth is that shouldn't these Oyibo people understand that you have international students? You have international students in your country. They should begin to help to review, because it is a lot of revenue coming from different parts of the world. How many of their own children can actually afford this university?
Okay, so the thing is, at the end of the day, it was more of an economical expert that broke down why we should invest in education, knowing that while most resources are not renewable, your agric, planting trees and investing in human capital are renewable. Where you can guarantee your investment, the most guaranteeable investment you can ever have is into educating yourself and educating your citizens. So if our government's decision not to do it, they know why they didn't do it. I don't want to believe that our leaders are not aware of the importance of educating their citizens. But if you are not educated, you cannot question your leaders. And if you're not educated, you cannot speak up for your rights. So the people that prioritize education have decided to go and get education wherever they want to. It's a personal decision. This is not government money going out.
Yes.
This is private individuals paying 152 billion naira to educate their wards in developed countries. And these developed countries are smarter than us by far, because the difference between some countries have almost 100% increase. Even in Ghana here, the citizens will pay 10,000 naira. Your foreign students will pay 20,000 naira for the same program.
Yes.
So, and there was a time my husband was telling me, and if you read history, people used to come to Nigeria to study.
In the 60s.
The University of Ife, the University of Ibadan. People were coming in. So we watched what we had wither away, and now we're complaining it doesn't make any sense. So if we want to capture this income, there are a few things we can do. We cannot say that people should not go and send their children abroad because they're not asking you for the money to do it. But you can create alternatives. I realized that when we had, when Atiku set up his own school, when the Turkish International University set up their own schools here, what they did was many people that are taking their children abroad now realize that I don't need to take my child abroad. Let me put my child in school here. Because the pressure on our foreign exchange is huge on education.
So
That's
I'm happy that we're
speaking
speaking with, we're going to be talking on economy in a few minutes, because I like to link this, because many parents are also saying they're having difficulty accessing Forex
Right now.
to pay for their school fees. Now, I know a family who is considering bringing her child back to Nigeria, and she's thinking that because they can't keep up. Now, but the child is refusing, trying to go and work underground to get the money. And working underground, obviously, the authorities will begin to, will not make you comfortable. So the issue now is how is our government? Is it, no, let me rephrase it, and I'll ask this to Ajiri when he gives us. Is it beneficial to us to continually help parents get Forex to take abroad? Or is it economically beneficial for us to have the Nigerian universities partner with these universities abroad such that our kids can come home and continue their education in certain high-grade levels universities? Because right now, whether we like it or not, these people they're not considering our children to review their salary, their tuition, or for their sake. They're not going to do that.
For them.
So I would like a university owned by Atiku, for example, speaking with other international schools, or saying, you know what, let us have these children back home and we can continue education with some kind of partnership.
Have them back home to which facility? Do you have you swept your house, cleaned up your house before inviting guests in? You cannot just call them to leave all the facilities that they have. We've had students, we have people who school here who are supposed to be doing practical courses, and they have no idea how the instruments look till today, till they leave the universities. We have that issue. The infrastructures are dead, nothing is updated, curriculum obsolete. We have all of those issues. Yeah. We've not cleaned our home. So if you are going into partnership, so to speak, you must have prepared yourself in such a way that when they come in, they have something to want to look forward to.
Look, let me take this call from Mauritius. Good morning, are you there? Mauritius, good morning.
Wow.
Are you still there? Peace. Ooh, I think we lost the call.
So I wanted to touch on what you raised. So because of the pressure on foreign exchange in Nigeria, the government is having to fulfill these things. The government is fulfilling it because people have a right to go and educate themselves wherever they want to. The government can create a policy that does not allow them give exchange rates, but that's to be selfish, because really we haven't provided the facility to make you stay home.
Thank you.
That's one. Number two, another thing I feel that the government can do, which a lot of private individuals are already doing, they are forming partnerships with international schools to offer international certification within Nigeria, but that's still us glorifying international certification above Nigerian certification.
Bang.
So there are many angles to this thing that requires leadership As in, it sits with the leadership. And most of our leaders have their children also studying abroad. So when the political class, if you check the list of people that are studying abroad, all our political class, and I'll beg to say, maybe not say all, but like 98%, let me not say 99%, of our political class have children studying abroad. So they are the bulk of the money. And because they are not suffering the issue in Nigeria, they will not be moved to say they want to help.
Let me take this
the conditions
call
of other Nigerians.
I think he's back. Peace, are you there?
Yes, I'm here with you, Mariah. Good morning.
You're live. Go ahead, please.
Oh, we lost that. Mariah,
so sorry about that.
The solution for me will be that you, as a leader, you lead by example. So if you really want someone to pay attention to how another person feels, the person has to wear that shoe. So if we make it that for anyone who holds public office, your children will school here, you see that our systems will change. Now they will come down and pay attention to the things that they need to provide for the schools. We will not have children anymore who are schooling under the tree. We will not have about 100 and something in cramped up in one classroom. We will not have schools that have dilapidated buildings and all. They will pay attention because they want their children to be.
I hear that argument.
To stay in a conducive environment and have proper learning.
I hear that.
So if we can make that, you see that things will change.
We know what increased budget for health. Why did they increase the budget for health? You think it's because of COVID? No. If the COVID had happened and it didn't happen internationally and our political class can travel out, we probably would not be that bothered. Yeah. But everybody is forced to work and use the healthcare system in their country. So we have states that their commissioners in states cannot access healthcare in their state because the state does not have prerequisite healthcare system. The Kogi states, you have a leader within your state going to Abuja to the isolation center. What I'm saying is, when everybody is forced to use the education sector within the country, they will be forced to upgrade it. They will put channel more money into it. But for now, they have escaped, so they will not go abroad.
Good morning. Are you there, Hassan?
Good morning, Mariah.
Thanks for calling, sir. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, Obiajulu.
Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Hassan.
Please, we are very good in criticizing government all the time. This one-way traffic, I don't think it's right for us. If our wives fail to conceive, we blame federal government. And federal government, as far as I'm concerned, I'm one of the critics of the federal government of Nigeria. But what is very clear, I cannot be criticizing somebody on something that is right, where he's doing it right. Have we taken a look at our banks? Up to tomorrow, CBN are giving banks money to pay school fees, to pay hospital bills abroad. Ask the banks, what have they been doing? There is this round tripping going on in the bank. They take our money given by CBN for the benefit of all to black market to sell. That is what is ongoing now. We should begin to look at our bank. Now, the federal government, through the CBN, increased the amount we buy dollars from 360 to something else. But up to now, that money is up to 390. But parents are forced to go to the black market and buy. Why? Why the provision is there by the federal government given to commercial banks to pay people. We should begin to look at banks.
Thank you very much, Hassan, for that. I'm going to go on a break because what we're talking about is connected to our Let's Talk, which is talking about the economy. The government is about to loan about 2.3 trillion naira. And we need to find out why and see if this, the fact that the forex are being inaccessible to parents is some way the government is trying to help generate revenue for the country. I don't know. We'll talk about it when we come back after the break. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. So, according to reports, the Federal Executive Council has approved 2.3 trillion naira stimulus recommended by the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan headed by our Vice President. The plan will support the Nigerian economy in the face of disruptions and challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. The goals of this stimulus are to create jobs, put money into the economy, hopefully stop it from slipping into recession, and support small businesses and prioritize local content. Joining us on the show is a Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale. Good morning, sir. Are you there?
Good morning to you, ladies. Thank you very much for having me. I'm here.
Good. And we also have the Senior Partner, KPMG, Wale Ajayi. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. I'm happy to join.
Good to have you. Let me start with Wale this morning because we are almost on the same page as regards to why the government would approve 2.3 trillion at this time. What do you make of this loan, especially at this critical time where we're not making enough revenue as a country? Do you think it's a good time to get this loan?
The simple answer to that is that it is yes, this is a stimulus package. And if you look at what all the countries, other countries have done, because you need to stimulate the economy when you have a weakening demand. And so the question is, how do you stimulate the economy? If we don't do anything, we're going to go into recession, right? At the beginning of this year, we expected a growth rate of about 3% or thereabouts, but now we're going to be witnessing a decline in GDP of about 4%. So the question is, what do we do to stimulate our economy? What do we do to protect jobs? And when you look at countries all around the world, in the US, for example, they have a stimulus package that is close to about 2.2 trillion just to stimulate the economy. In the UK, it's about 12 billion pounds. And in Nigeria, the size of the stimulus package in Nigeria is less than 5 billion pounds. So when you look at the objectives that the stimulus package intends to achieve, I think it's something that is laudable and that everyone should support. But as usual, the question we need to worry ourselves with the accountability. How do we ensure that the plan delivers on its promise?
So that's the question we all have. And then there's a distrust of the system, which you can't blame Nigerians for distrusting the system. They haven't proven otherwise yet. We're still seeing few things. But my question is, we usually hear the money being thrown out. And we've learned over time from economists like you, and I would also want to direct this question to Ajuri, is that what exactly is the budget per ministry? Okay, what would this money be used for specifically? Because you can say we're going to we're going to create jobs with this money. We're going to give a section, the healthcare sector is going to get stimulus. The aviation sector needs stimulus. But what exactly is the budget and what do you hope to achieve? How do we measure the KPI? How do we measure the effectiveness of this money? What would be the expectations Nigeria should have that we're hoping that if we put this 10 billion naira inside this industry, they will generate so and so amount of money or retain so and so amount of. What exactly are the KPIs? Ajuri, please, can you help us?
Absolutely. Thank you again for having me. It's always a privilege to be with all of you. Let me just start from saying that indeed we are dealing with decades worth of suspicion and distrust of government. And the only way that you're going to break through that is to be as transparent, honest, and accountable as possible. So what we've done in relation to the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan is to make sure that our people have all of the details and all of the content. So that there is a barometer against which they can measure our performance, because ultimately that's how you gain trust. Now, in terms of the specific breakdowns, the founding ethos is essentially to say we're going to rebuild this country across sectors using 100% indigenous Nigerian companies, employing 100% indigenous Nigerian labor, using 100% indigenous Nigerian raw materials, so that you're not just creating the direct jobs in the plan, but you're also creating indirect jobs that can multiply throughout the economy because you're sourcing only Nigerian raw materials, for example. Now, you're looking predominantly at agriculture, housing, power, digital outsourcing, and alternative energy sources. I'm going to start from agriculture because that's where you're going to get the maximum amount of jobs. As you know, the NESP, the Sustainability Plan, is a product of the Economic Sustainability Committee chaired by Vice President Professor Yemi Oshibajo. Now, after it was approved by Federal Executive Council very recently, the President directed that, of course, after the Vice President and his team had compiled the plan, that they are also now in charge of implementation of the plan, which means that those who designed it will be the ones making sure that on the ground, everything is happening the way that it was envisaged to happen. So agriculture, what we've done is we're partnering with state governments, all 36 state governments. So in every sector, every segment of this plan, every local government is taken into account for equitable distribution of benefits. So now, in agriculture, the state governments have worked with us to agree to give the federal government between 20,000 hectares and 100,000 hectares of land, each state, so that in exchange, federal government will now employ millions of young Nigerians to execute an unprecedented land clearing and cultivation scheme. Essentially, what it entails is we take the land provided by the states across all local governments, and then our young people clear it and cultivate it, not just for the sake of keeping them engaged, but we're targeting high-value export commodities. Those things that will earn us high rates of foreign exchange on the international export market. What am I talking about? Cocoa, beef, dairy, those areas that we have neglected now for 40, 50 years, we're going back to them. So they're going to be cultivating that across all of this land across the country in every state.
Right.
In addition to agriculture, we are looking at housing now. In housing, what has been the systemic problem? You will have a situation where, of course, state governments constitutionally have the mandate over land use. So if you want to go and if you're a housing developer, private sector housing developer, you go to the state government, go to the state Ministry of Lands, you have to pay somebody a bribe. By the time you pay the bribe, you've paid money, you now get the land, you now have to find all the money to build the housing estate. So by the time you now are looking for the Nigerian homeowner to buy the house, you're expecting them to cough up 30, 40, 50 million naira at once because we don't have a legitimate mortgage housing, mortgage lending scheme. So now, in view of the problem, the Vice President and his team were able to come up with a comprehensive solution that is implementable. What's going to happen is that within the next 12 months, these are the KPIs you asked about, within the next 12 months, we are going to build 300,000 houses. How does it break down? 400 houses per local government times 774 local government areas of this country. That is over 300,000 houses within 12 months. The way we are going to do it is we are going to bring all Nigerian artisans, plumbers, carpenters, you name it. They're going to form small and medium-scale cooperatives within all the local government areas of the country, and we're going to standardize all of the items that are going to be used to construct these standardized houses. So in effect, all of the door handles, all of the window panes, all of the minor elements that make up a house, you're going to get the same one in Gombe that you will get in Port Harcourt, the same one you'll get in Lagos. Everywhere they'll be using the same one. We're going to use a warehousing agent that is going to oversight the construction of all of these houses, so that once All right.
Yes, so...
Can I finish?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Just Dan, go ahead.
I just want to finish so that people understand how this is going to work. Very quickly, I'll be brief. Now, basically, we're going to off-take these houses from the contractors, who are going to be Nigerian contractors using Nigerian labor. We're going to off-take these houses, and then we're going to have, the CBN is going to intervene to off-take the houses and then sell them directed at the middle class and lower income households in this country, so that we buy the houses and then offer mortgage rates of like on a pay-to-own basis of between 25 and 35,000 naira a month until they own the house, because each house is going to be valued at between 2 million and 4 million naira. So they're going to be affordable houses for our people, and we're going to ensure that no big man will come and buy up all the houses and try to sublet them by essentially
Let me pause you for that. AG, are you still there? Ooh,
is it there? Because I wanted to direct the question to him.
Okay, I think we lost our jury. Let me move to Mr. Wale. Are you still there? Okay, we lost both of them. Oh. Okay, so I guess
there are many areas I disagree with, and there are many things that I must acknowledge sounds right. So we have something called federal character, and that's sort of like provides equitable sharing of resources and development across the country, but it also traps us because we have hubs of activity and we have hubs where accommodation is a major issue and housing is a major issue. But now, because of what we call equitable sharing of resources, it means that we have to now deploy 400 houses in every local government, where some local governments are having crises. Some local governments don't even have enough commerce to generate demand for the 400 houses. So rather than putting 800 houses in one local government that needs it, or putting 2,000 houses in one local government that needs it, we need to be more, we need to solve the problem. And the problem need indigenous solution for different kinds of problems. So the agric sounds interesting. I am eager to see how they will deploy it. I must applaud the agric move. The housing move, personally, I don't agree with it. I don't think that housing is a present problem for Nigeria, and housing would stimulate employment and sort of, but the end game because we need to think of the end game. So what are the other areas I wanted to hear more, because I'm enjoying Anjuri before the fake
For
cut
me,
off.
all the moves are, for me, I would say lofty ideas, because we have a 12-month plan to carry out all of this. And it's not just one sector we're looking at. We're looking at agriculture, infrastructure. They talked about housing, solar, you know, a lot of things at the same time. And under just 12 months, how real is this? How realistic are we in carrying out all of this? How do we ensure that we take a plan and we perfect that plan before moving on to the other one? Or we're just going to be doing it in a very scattered way? Yeah.
Ajuri and Wale, are you there? Okay.
I hope you heard
The question is for him.
Yeah.
Okay, so Ajuri,
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, the plans seem very, they sound nice, but I'm wondering, how do we bring it to reality? How possible is it that we're able to achieve all of this looking at the 12-month plan? So we're not just looking at one, we're not saying let's take agriculture and finish with it in 3 months, or take this one and finish with it. We are doing everything simultaneously within 12 months. How realistic is it?
Thank you so much. It's very realistic. And this is why I said, you know, we have to be very specific in what we're talking about. In the past, governments will just say, we're going to generate 40,000 megawatts by 2020, and they will not tell you how. They will just tell you with some random figures and all of that. That's why we're taking our time to say, look, these are what the KPIs are. This is how we're going to get there, right? Look, the issue here is we understand the skepticism around implementation. Yes, fantastic plan. How are you going to make it happen on the ground? That's why we work so hard to make sure that we're working hand in glove with the state governors, because in the past, federal interventions will just be designed at the center with no consultation with the state level to know how these things will actually manifest at the grassroots, because each state has their peculiarities. But fortunately, because the vice president is also the chairman of the National Economic Council, constantly working with the 36 state governors across party lines, he was able to go to each of them and say, look, how in your own, if we're doing housing in Kano, what are the peculiarities? What are those things that we can source, raw materials we can source that are unique to Kano to take advantage of locational
Ajuri, let me come in here for a second, Ajuri, because I know the Honorable Minister of Works and Housing had told me at some point they had challenges because they had actually built houses across the country for a while. In fact, they still have those houses in these places, and nobody is residing in these houses, either because of the location of the plans or where they are. So my point is, how do you ensure that these houses you are building, actually, people do buy them? Number one. Number two, that you actually get people who can afford the mortgage of it.
In those locations.
Right. No, this is a very salient and important question. I'm glad you asked it, because this is the major stumbling block as to why we do not have mass housing schemes that effectively work in this country. The difference between this one and what has happened before is that we have a guaranteed off-taker. So, okay, so in effect, if you construct a house, right, and you have somebody who has bought the house from you, so that they can now essentially as a middle agent, as government now, to be
network issues. Okay, Ajuri, we can't hear you anymore, but I'd like to move to Wale at this point. Wale, are you still there? Wale Ajayi, are you still there? Mr. Wale Ajayi, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Mr. Ajayi?
Yes, I can hear you.
Very good. Ajuri, I'll pause you for a second. I have to come to Mr. Wale at this point. You've heard everything Ajuri has been saying, and BC asked the question of how realistic it is, and I'd like you to respond to that. But I'd like you to also connect that with the fact that I think the World Bank said in today's papers that Nigeria is going to slip into 92 million poverty. We're going to have about 92 million to move down in abject poverty by 2022. Now, with these lofty plans Ajuri has stated, do you think we can avert this prediction by the World Bank?
Yeah, or two.
Oh, thank you so much for that. I think, like I said, I mean, the plan itself is very laudable in terms of the objective that it seeks to achieve. And I've also talked about why we need to have that plan because of the decline that we witnessed, the challenges that have been posed by COVID-19. But when you look at the plan, it looks good on paper. And unfortunately, I mean, Nigerians are right to express their skepticism, okay, these are things that you need to do within 12 months. And the question, of course, is how far can we go? I mean, we can talk about from our past experience at, delivering on our promise. For example, we've spoken about how to ramp up, power generation and distribution in Nigeria for years now. We're still around, 3,000 megawatts, despite the fact that we've been on it for the past 10 years or thereabouts, right? We haven't done much about that. The same thing with oil production, right? We want to increase to 4 million barrels of oil per day, and we're still around 2 million barrels of oil per day. So we've had experiences where we've not been able to deliver on our promise. So when I look at the Economic Sustainability Plan, it looks good on paper, but the question is, can we actually get this done within 12 months? And I will speak to that now. The problem has always been implementation in Nigeria, right? We know what to do, but somehow we just don't get to do what we're supposed to do. Right. In terms of monitoring, of course, the Economic Sustainability Committee is meant to be monitoring and providing oversight to what the various ministries would do. And also there is supposed to be some sort of a ministerial committee that's supposed to monitor what is supposed to be done within each ministry. But the problem has always been, how do you ensure that people that are supposed to do what they're supposed to do actually do it? How do you ensure there is transparency? We all know what has happened in respect of traders' money. As of today, nobody even has an idea as to how many people have benefited from it. We don't have a clue, right? And as part of this project itself is that CBN is going to provide structural loans, to businesses. And you look at all the sectors that are looking at. Yes, they're supposed to be vulnerable sectors, but at the end of the day, you find out that there is even no sector in Nigeria that is not vulnerable. It's not just the creative sector or agri sector. But we understand what the government is trying to do. But when you look at the stimulus packages that have been implemented by other countries, they've always affected everybody, every citizen. Take, for example, in the UK. I mean, UK has an income protection program that covers everybody. And there's a way how to disburse the money. Right? About 80% of the salary is guaranteed. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me tell you what my worry is. Okay, because when I hear stimulus package, I know that you're bringing money into the economy. But my worry is many countries, the way they benefit from this stimulus is through taxes. So you put money, you plug money in, and people pay taxes, and that's how the government can mop up some of these monies to use it for infrastructure. But in our country, we've seen our government struggle to increase the amount of revenue via taxes. They've been dependent so much on the oil revenue. But I know the FRC tried really hard to get the figures up. So now you're putting money into the government, you're putting in the stimulus package. How exactly will they get this money back?
Okay, the whole idea of the stimulus package, you're right. In Nigeria today, the current tax to GDP ratio is about 8%. Right, I mean it's much lower when you compare it to the rest of the world, especially to the rest of African countries. But what this idea is all about is this: currently, when you look at what COVID-19 has caused, businesses are not doing well, and if businesses are not doing well, what that means is that they cannot retain employees, and if they cannot retain employees, means they cannot generate income, and if they cannot generate income, it means that they cannot pay taxes, and what that means that government cannot have money. And so what the government is trying to do is to provide assistance to businesses to be able to stimulate production and also to be able to stimulate demand. That's the whole idea of what this package is all about. So at the end of the day, businesses will be able to produce and they'll be able to earn income, and government can then earn income from the activities of business. So that's the whole essence of it. I think it's the way we've implemented it that is a bit different. There is so much opaqueness in how we implement things in Nigeria. We need transparency, we need accountability. If there is transparency, I can assure you that like I said, the objective of the Economic Sustainability Plan itself is laudable, but it's the implementation that is the problem. If you can get it right, and people that are supposed to get the loans actually get the loans, then at the end of the year, we will be able to reduce the decline in GDP in Nigeria.
Okay. All right, so 2 questions quickly. The first one is, they talked about providing money for businesses. Now, I'm asking, should it be, or shouldn't it be that the policies that will enable the businesses have a conducive environment to thrive? Shouldn't it be what we're looking at? Because the truth is, by the time you give money loans to businesses, which are still going to be getting a little interest, no matter how little it is. The businesses will still thrive in an unconducive environment where they are having to struggle with power, they do not have water, they do not have good roads to be able to convey their goods. And so the money they will be spending will still be, you know, bringing most of the businesses down. So shouldn't we be looking at a way of making good policies that would, you know, encourage small businesses to stand on their own and providing the basic amenities that they need for that business? Now, secondly, Anjuri, I wanted to ask you, you highlighted in the KPI, the solar housing system. Now, I know that solar is very, very expensive, and you people are targeting to bring in about 5 million people out of the 25 million who are not captured in the national grid. How are you, is this solar now going to be for the poor? Because it's actually very expensive to even have. How are you planning to do it?
So I think, Wale, want to start with the first question?
Okay, so let me address the first one. You're right. I mean, you're right to say that we need to have a conducive environment. And, you know, one of the components of the economic sustainable plan actually is infrastructure. So government is going to invest massively in transportation. They're going to invest massively in bridges and road transportation just to create employment. Okay. And so, and also, of course, they're going to invest in electricity generation when you talk about solar. And of course, there's many other facets of the plan that also interlink with other things that government is doing. I'm sure with respect to power, you probably may be aware, for example, there is a current agreement with Siemens to be able to ramp up electricity generation in Nigeria to about 25,000 megawatts, you know, by 2023, right? And so there's so many facets of this plan. It's not just to give loans to businesses, but also to provide the enabling environment for businesses to thrive.
Yeah, thank you very much. Let me just add on to what my brother has said. Just a very quick correction. The Siemens deal is to provide 7,000 megawatts before the first quarter of 2022, and then supply 11,000 megawatts by December 2023, and then 25,000 megawatts by 2025. Yes, please. So essentially, this is what you have. In terms of access to solar that you mentioned, it's very, very strategic. You have 5 million solar housing systems. It's not for 5 million Nigerians, it's for 25 million Nigerians, but it's 5 million solar home systems. Okay. Now, they're going to be distributed not just in homes in the rural communities, but we're focused on, you know, the bulk of our informal economy in this country, which is so much of the total economy, is in our rural centers, our rural communities. So we are now focused on making sure that small businesses, farms, and primary health care and primary health centers and primary schools have access to this solar home systems. Now, you asked about affordability, very important question. We have done this before. Most of what we're doing in this plan is an upscaling of what we have already tested and done. For example, if you talk about solar home, solar facilities, you look at the Energizing Economy scheme where we went to Ariaria market in Aba, and people were skeptical that how will market stall owners be able to pay for solar power? But they're paying. Why? Because they're getting 24 hours light, which is upgrading their capacity to make profit, to run their business, and they're able to pay. So that it's going to work the same way. Okay. We're going to put together 250,000 young people in conjunction with NASENI, that's the Nigerian Agency for Space and Engineering Infrastructure, that are going to be involved in the manufacturing, the distribution, and most importantly, the maintenance of all of these solar home systems, so that we don't watch them break down and think of how we're going to make new ones and all of that.
All right.
I want to just make very, very clear that in terms of MSME provisions, we are providing massive grants to businesses that can prove that they are going to keep their employment roles as they are or as they were before COVID-19 hit. If they do that and they meet the conditions, we're not even going to ask them to repay a loan. We're going to give them grants and make sure that they have what they need to expand their operations during this difficult time.
That sounds great. Let me go on a break. We'll be right back, Ajuri. Don't go anywhere. We're right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
So thanks for staying with us. So we still have with us the Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngalale, and the Senior Partner, KPMG, Wale Ajayi, with us. Talk, we had a question. Go ahead.
In most, I'm an entrepreneur. I'm running my business in Nigeria, and I have endured the lockdown, and it has really affected my business. So even reopening, I didn't reopen one studio. We've only opened 2 studios. And I have many other people that I interact with that run businesses in Nigeria, and I've heard their stories. So we have, a friend of mine has containers that have not been cleared. 55 containers, 17 was brought in, still struggling to clear the 17 brought in for the past 2 weeks. Business has to shut down, like she had to shut down the factory. So when you say you're giving stimulus, the stimulus is not about you giving me grant or giving me money. Let my goods clear. Give me import waivers. Don't let me pay demurrage when the reason for the demurrage was because there was a lockdown. So when you say you're giving money, these are other ways we can give money that the entrepreneurs will feel the impact. The tax waivers. So does the government have a plan concerning these suggestions I just made that I haven't heard about, or is it captured within your stimulus package?
Yeah, fantastic question. Thanks again. Let me just say that, we had already dealt with many of these issues in the finance bill that was signed into effect at the beginning of this year. Okay. The finance bill 2019 essentially adjusted tax rates in the country in such a manner that our micro and small enterprises that were once paying company income tax, for example, are now to pay 0%, for example. So that was already part of the administration's plan even before COVID-19 hit. So that continues. In terms of alternative forms of providing assistance, another thing we have done is we're working with many of the agencies you've talked about to reduce the price of, reduce the cost of things like product registration for businesses. NAFDAC has in the last 1 month during COVID-19, has cut product registration by 80%. Fees by 80%. That's just one example out of many. So yes, our government agencies are taking a cue. They've all been coordinated to take part in the plan in terms of minimizing the impact, the cost implication on MSMEs at a time of this very difficult period of COVID-19. So all of that has been factored in.
Okay, let me come to, because I know Drew would have to leave very soon. Let me come to Wale for a second, because everybody has been predicting that Nigeria will slip into recession, that it's almost inevitable. In your view, KPMG, what do you think is the real situation? Do you think this stimulus package that is being infused into the economy can actually indeed prevent us from slipping into recession?
Okay. Thank you so much. First and foremost, let's first state that you have a recession when you have a decline in GDP for 2 consecutive quarters. Mm-hmm. So that is when you say you have a recession. And there is no doubt that given the interruptions and the challenges that COVID-19 has posed, that Nigeria will slip into a recession. And so what is the whole idea of the stimulus package, the Economic Sustainability Plan, is to be able to manage the impact of COVID-19 on the Nigerian economy. In other words, how do we stimulate growth within the economy, right? How do we ensure that people can actually buy goods? How do we ensure that goods are available? How do we ensure that there is income, within the economy? Especially when you consider the fact that currently the Nigeria is solely dependent on crude oil. About 50% of government revenue comes from crude oil, and about 90% of our export earnings, coming from crude oil. And at the beginning of your program, you're talking about the exchange rate. That is why we have problem with our exchange rate. So the whole essence of this is that, yes, if it goes according to plan, now the stimulus package should be able to stimulate economy, right? But it all depends on the size of the stimulus package in itself, right? And how long it lasts. So for example, when I started, I talked about the size of the stimulus package in the US, which is about 2.2 trillion. In the UK, it's about 12 billion pounds. In the EU, it's about 1 trillion euros. The size of the Nigerian stimulus package is less than 5 billion pounds, right? Which is just about 2.6 trillion, right? And so the question then is, how well will it go into ensuring that Nigeria is able to manage the downside of COVID-19? Given the size, even the government recognizes the fact that we will still end up with a contraction in the economy by the end of 2020. But that contraction will be about 6%. But that is rests on so many assumptions. Number one, one of the assumptions is that government itself is able to manage its cost and reduce its cost by at least 20%. But the question is, can we do that? And then number two, of course, is a question of how we even manage the package in itself in the disbursement. So if we do it right, and that's a big if, then we should be able to reduce the contraction in the economy. So we will experience growth in 2020, not likely. There will be still a decline.
Right.
But the size of that decline will depend on how well we're able to manage the stimulus package.
Right.
Itself.
All right, let's go on a quick break. We'll be right back.
Stay tuned. Your View will be right back. Welcome back to Your View.
Thanks for staying with us. You had a question.
So I wanted to ask Ajiri, you talked about, among the KPI, we have the digital identification of every Nigerian, which sounds good to me, but can you just in a few words explain what it entails, what it means, what it entails?
Different from NIMS?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. So what you have now is, as part of all the program, it's not really a segment of the program as much as it is actually covering all the programs.
Okay.
So all the individuals involved in all the programs, from farming to digital outsourcing to agriculture, all the things that we've talked about, that housing, all of them will be mandated to enroll in the NIMC so that we can consolidate on our databases. That also includes, by the way, and we have been doing this, one of the most underreported aspects of the social investment programs is that the enrolling in digital identification is a prerequisite. And we're going to continue that as we expand the SIPs under the sustainability plan as well. So that covers everything. The other thing I just want to mention very quickly, because it's very important, is the digital outsourcing component. What we're doing as part of this program, also within the next 12 months, is we are going to be building technology parks all across the country. What that entails are essentially Western-style call centers, where our young people, we're going to employ 1 million young people to be in these call centers, where they will be taking calls on behalf of government agencies and also private sector clients. So for example, Total, Fidelity Bank, all of various clients, private sector clients, will now essentially be operating these, paying for services from these call centers, so that we have young people answering questions, troubleshooting, digitizing documents, and all of these various things. So we're going to generate 1 million jobs for young people in digital outsourcing as well as part of this program.
And
so all of this.
And Jury, God will preserve us to the next 1 year, 12 months from now. I want to celebrate with you, because really, I don't wish this doesn't work out. I wish that we have that 1 million jobs from, especially the call center is a fantastic idea. So I'm eager to have that conversation with you. Let's have an appointment for this time next year to celebrate.
Why not giving him up 1 year?
Let us not wait until next year. I hope that we will be doing monthly updates on the implementation of this project.
Yes.
Okay. All right, we'll see you then. Okay, let me let you go, Ajiri, because I need to get back to Mr. Wale. Mr. Wale, so you've heard everything.
God bless you.
We've heard everything we've said so far. Give us some good news. Do you think this whole, that this indeed will give us some light at the end of the tunnel, at the end of the day? Do you agree that the government indeed,
Well, I wish I could share the same sentiment as Jury, but when you look at the track record of this country, we just don't have the track record.
Oh, wow.
How many years has it taken us to? We're still building Lagos-Ibadan Express. After many years. So there's so many things you can point to that would cast some doubt as to the ability of this government to deliver on the promise. But the good thing about it is that part of if you look at the plan in itself, right, it has defined what exactly the priorities should be, what the timelines are, what the expected outcomes should be. And there is one aspect of it also that requires a public and private sector partnership. So if you can have an independent party that can actually monitor, right, and evaluate how far government has done and hold people accountable, then probably we might be able to achieve something at the end of the year. That is the big if. But, from past experience, we just don't have the track record of delivering on our promise. So we know what we're supposed to do. We are very good at designing very good economic plan, but implementing and getting results has always been our
Okay, let
Achilles
me
heel.
ask
So
you this final
hopefully,
question before we run off, because
Yeah.
a lot of people have said that they're asking for dollars to have their children school abroad. But at the same time, we're also saying we need Nigerians to stay home, eat local, produce local, so that we can help stimulate our economy. Where do we draw the line between still traveling outside for maybe health issues, health tourism, or and also and staying within Nigeria? Where do we draw the line?
It's a very tough question, right? Because we just don't have the infrastructure in Nigeria. And that is why Nigerians are spending so much money on medical tourism and education in Nigeria today. But the fact of the matter is because the oil market has collapsed, right? I mean, yes, it's about $41 per barrel today, right? And the budget for 2020 is budgeted on, is predicated on $25, $27 per barrel. And so hopefully if we stage that way, we will have enough foreign exchange to be able to pay for some of this. But at the end of the day, the only thing we can do, and this is what COVID-19 has revealed, especially in terms of the development of our hospitals, it has shown that if you don't invest in our hospitals, we're going to have problems. So hopefully, we will have to start focusing on how do we invest in our infrastructure in Nigeria, starting with our educational facilities and starting with our hospitals, and hopefully we can get that sorted out. But if we don't, then it's going to become extremely difficult for people that have money and prevent them from going outside, to take care of themselves. But we just need to focus on infrastructure, and that is one of the components of the Economic Sustainability Plan.
It will be very wrong. It will be very wrong of us to have this platform and not talk about the expense of food, because everybody is complaining about the cost of the rising cost of food, the rising cost of transportation, and how there is no government input. Is there any way they can regulate food? Some of the food vendors complain that it's because of the cost of bringing it in. Because of lockdown, they have to settle so many people along the way, and this is affecting everyday Nigerian. This is our food. So what can the government do to help with reducing? Can a policy be put in place to reduce cost of food in the market? Because this will affect everybody.
Actually, one of the components of the components of the plan really, it's about agriculture, diversifying, and also giving a platform for which we can actually take the output from the farmers, because there is no point in the farmers producing the goods and nobody is there to take the food from them. And so there is a guaranteed uptake, from all the produce by the farmers. So if that works, then we should be able to have at least to be able to sustain ourselves when it comes to food. And the other thing that you also have to understand is that this plan is actually geared towards made in Nigeria. So we're trying to produce the food that we eat ourselves, even the manufactured items that we need in Nigeria. Yeah. But it's always the big if. We just have to pull it out and combine all the factors together.
Unfortunately, we have to wrap up.
We have to be transparent in the process.
We have to wrap. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this morning. We've been speaking with the Special Assistant of the President, Public Affairs, Ajuri Ngelale, and the Senior Partner, KPMG, Wale Ajayi. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. That's all we can take on the show. Hope you learned quite a few things. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.